My name is Sophie Bennett. I'm 27 years old, and the day my grandmother's will was read, I learned a painful truth. Sometimes, the people who smile in your face are the same people who will stab you in the back the moment they think they can get away with it. Growing up, my older sister Victoria was always the favorite. She was charming, confident, and knew exactly how to make people love her. Family members adored her. Friends admired her. Even strangers seemed drawn to her. I was different. I was quieter, more independent, and never cared much about being the center of attention. While Victoria was busy impressing people, I spent my time studying, working, and building a future for myself. The one person who always treated us equally was my grandmother. She was the heart of our family. When everyone else compared me to Victoria, Grandma reminded me that character mattered more than popularity. When life became difficult, she was always the first person to encourage me. She believed in me long before I learned how to believe in myself. A few months before she passed away, we sat together on her porch one afternoon talking about life. During that conversation, she told me something I never forgot. "Sophie," she said, "I've made sure both of my granddaughters will be taken care of." At the time, I didn't think much about it. I wasn't interested in her money. I just wanted more time with her. Unfortunately, life had other plans. When she passed away, our family was devastated. The funeral was heartbreaking. But what happened afterward was even worse. A few weeks later, everyone gathered at a lawyer's office for the reading of her will. I walked into that room expecting a difficult day emotionally. I never imagined it would become the beginning of a nightmare. The lawyer began reading the documents. At first, everything seemed normal. Then my stomach dropped. According to the will, nearly everything belonged to Victoria. The house, the investment accounts, the savings, the jewelry, almost all of it. I sat there completely frozen. This wasn't possible. This wasn't what Grandma told me, not even close. I looked across the room at Victoria. For a split second, I noticed something strange. She wasn't surprised. She wasn't emotional. She looked nervous, as if she already knew exactly what was about to happen. The feeling hit me immediately. Something was wrong, very wrong. After the meeting ended, relatives congratulated Victoria while I stood there trying to understand what had just happened. My parents told me to accept it. My aunt said I shouldn't create drama. Victoria acted offended whenever I questioned anything. But the more people told me to move on, the less I trusted what I had heard. Something about the entire situation felt wrong. And the deeper I looked, the more questions I found. Why were some documents signed only weeks before Grandma passed away? Why did certain signatures look different? Why were important records suddenly missing? Why was Victoria so desperate to shut down every conversation about the inheritance? At first, I thought I was grieving. I thought maybe I was imagining things. But then I discovered one small detail, a detail that changed everything. One tiny piece of evidence led to another, then another, then another. Before long, I uncovered a secret so shocking that it threatened to destroy my entire family. The sister I trusted had done something I never believed she was capable of doing. She hadn't simply inherited Grandma's fortune, she had stolen it. And the worst part? Everyone was helping her get away with it. My parents, my relatives, even people who knew the truth. They all expected me to stay quiet, to accept my loss, to walk away. What they didn't realize was that I had inherited something far more valuable than money from my grandmother. I inherited her determination, and from that moment forward, I made a promise. I would uncover the truth. I would expose every lie. And I would make sure Victoria faced the consequences of what she had done. Because while my sister thought she had already won, she had no idea that her biggest nightmare was only beginning. But before I tell you what happened next, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. If you enjoy shocking family betrayal stories, dramatic revenge tales, and satisfying endings, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and stay until the end, because the revenge that followed was something my sister never saw coming. Growing up, my sister Victoria always seemed to get everything she wanted. She was beautiful, confident, and knew exactly how to make people love her. Family gatherings felt like celebrations in her honor. Relatives praised her constantly, while I quietly sat in the background. At first, I didn't mind. Victoria was my older sister, and I genuinely loved her. I believed sisters were supposed to support one another. Whenever she needed help, I was there. Whenever she made mistakes, I defended her. Looking back, I realize I spent years protecting someone who would eventually betray me in the worst possible way. The one person who always treated us equally was our grandmother. She never played favorites. She reminded me that kindness and integrity mattered more than attention. When Victoria sought praise from others, Grandma taught me to find confidence within myself. Those lessons became a source of strength throughout my life. At the time, I had no idea how important they would become. If someone had told me that one day my sister would steal what Grandma intended for me, I would have laughed. I trusted Victoria completely. Unfortunately, trust can be a dangerous thing when it's placed in the wrong person. A few months before my grandmother passed away, I visited her house for what would become one of our final conversations. We spent the afternoon drinking teas on her porch and talking about life. She seemed unusually reflective that day. At one point, she reached over, squeezed my hand, and told me she was proud of the woman I had become. Then she mentioned something that would stay with me forever. She explained that she had carefully organized her estate and wanted both of her granddaughters to have equal opportunities after she was gone. She said she loved us both and wanted everything to be fair. I remember telling her that I didn't care about money. I just wanted her to stay healthy. She laughed and told me that one day I would understand why planning ahead mattered. At the time, I didn't think much about the conversation. To me, Grandma's love was worth far more than any inheritance. Looking back, I realized she was trying to give me peace of mind. She wanted me to know that she had thought about my future. What neither of us knew was that someone else had already begun thinking about that inheritance too. The day of the will reading felt surreal. My family gathered in a lawyer's office, still grieving Grandma's loss. The atmosphere was heavy with sadness. I expected an emotional meeting, but I also believed everything would happen exactly as Grandma intended. Then the lawyer began reading the documents. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but within minutes, confusion spread across the room. Nearly everything had been left to Victoria. The house, the investment accounts, the savings, and most of Grandma's valuable possessions now belonged to my sister. I sat frozen in my chair. The words didn't make sense. This wasn't what Grandma told me. It wasn't even close. As relatives congratulated Victoria, I looked at her carefully. Instead of appearing surprised, she seemed nervous. She avoided eye contact and kept shifting in her seat. Something felt wrong. My instincts told me that this wasn't simply luck. Yet everyone around me acted as though the situation was perfectly normal. By the time the meeting ended, I wasn't just heartbroken, I was suspicious. And that suspicion would soon change my life forever. After the reading of the will, I started asking questions. Unfortunately, nobody wanted answers. My parents accused me of being jealous. Relatives told me I needed to accept Grandma's wishes and move on. Victoria acted deeply offended whenever I suggested something felt wrong. She claimed I was disrespecting Grandma's memory. The more people pushed back, the more isolated I felt. Part of me wondered if they were right. Maybe grief was clouding my judgment. Maybe I was imagining problems because I was disappointed. But every time I remembered my conversation with Grandma, doubt returned. She had specifically told me everything would be divided fairly. The documents didn't reflect that promise at all. Instead of giving up, I started reviewing everything I could find. I collected copies of paperwork, examined dates, and compared signatures. What began as curiosity slowly became an investigation. And with every document I reviewed, my concerns grew stronger. There were inconsistencies that simply couldn't be ignored. The more I searched, the more convinced I became that something had happened behind the scenes. Several weeks later, I found the first clue. It seemed small at first, but it changed everything. While reviewing legal records, I noticed that one important document had been signed only weeks before Grandma passed away. The timing immediately felt suspicious. Around that period, Grandma had been extremely ill and barely able to leave her home. Yet somehow major changes to her estate had occurred. I compared signatures from older documents to the newer paperwork. They looked different, not dramatically different, but enough to raise concerns. The more I examined them, the less comfortable I became. I brought my concerns to the lawyer, but he dismissed them quickly. According to him, everything appeared legitimate. Still, my instincts refused to let the matter go. Something wasn't right. That evening, I sat alone reviewing the evidence again and again. Then I noticed another inconsistency. A witness listed on one document had been out of town on the date they supposedly signed it. Suddenly, my suspicions transformed into something much more serious. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This could be fraud. As I continued digging, The pieces slowly came together. I spoke with people who knew Grandma during her final months. I gathered records and timelines. Eventually, a disturbing picture began to emerge. Victoria had been spending an unusual amount of time alone with Grandma shortly before the will changed. She controlled appointments, handled paperwork, and often discouraged other family members from getting involved. What initially seemed like caring behavior now looked very different. Then I discovered evidence suggesting that Grandma may never have fully understood the documents she signed. My stomach turned as the truth became clearer. Victoria hadn't simply benefited from the inheritance. She had manipulated the situation to secure it. Every new discovery made me angrier. Not because of the money, but because of what she had done to Grandma. She had taken advantage of someone who trusted her completely, and she believed she would never be caught. When I finally confronted my family with my concerns, the reaction was worse than I expected. Instead of supporting me, they rallied around Victoria. My parents accused me of tearing the family apart. Relatives said I was obsessed with money. Even people who privately admitted something seemed suspicious refused to speak publicly. Victoria played the victim perfectly. She cried during conversations and claimed I was attacking her because I couldn't handle losing the inheritance. Watching everyone believe her was infuriating. For a moment, I considered giving up. The entire family stood against me. But then I remembered Grandma. I remembered her kindness, her honesty, and the trust she placed in me. If I walked away, Victoria would win. More importantly, Grandma's final wishes would never be honored. That realization gave me the strength to keep fighting. Eventually, I hired an attorney. It was expensive, stressful, and terrifying. Victoria immediately responded with confidence, acting as though she had nothing to fear. But once legal investigators began reviewing documents, problems started appearing. Witness statements conflicted with official records. Signatures were questioned. Deeds failed to match. The case quickly became much larger than anyone expected. For the first time, Victoria looked nervous. She realized that the evidence wasn't disappearing. Every attempt to hide the truth only created more questions. Months passed as the investigation continued. The process was exhausting, but I refused to quit. Too much was at stake. I wasn't just fighting for an inheritance anymore. I was fighting for justice. The breakthrough finally came when investigators uncovered proof that key documents had been altered. Once the evidence became public, Victoria's entire story collapsed. Relatives who since defended her suddenly changed sides. Friends distanced themselves. Even my parents struggled to deny the truth. Watching everything unfold felt surreal. For years, Victoria had relied on charm and manipulation to get what she wanted. Now those tactics no longer worked. The truth was stronger than any lie she could tell. The inheritance was eventually redistributed according to Grandma's original intentions. But by then, the damage to our family was irreversible. Trust had been destroyed. Relationships had been shattered. Victoria had won money temporarily, but she lost something far more valuable in the process. People often ask if I got revenge on my sister. The truth is that I didn't need to. Her own actions created the consequences she faced. The best revenge wasn't humiliating her. It wasn't yelling, insulting her, or celebrating her downfall. The best revenge was exposing the truth. Once the lies disappeared, reality handled the rest. Today, I live peacefully knowing that I honored my grandmother's wishes. The inheritance helped secure my future, but the real victory was protecting her legacy. Victoria may have stolen from me temporarily, but she never truly won. In the end, honesty defeated manipulation. And every time I think about Grandma, I know she would be proud that I refused to stay silent when it mattered most. Looking back now, I realize that my grandmother left me something far more valuable than money. She left me a lesson about integrity, courage, and standing up for what's right even when you're standing alone. For a long time, I thought my battle was about an inheritance. I thought it was about recovering what had been stolen from me. But as the truth came out, I realized it was about something much bigger. It was about protecting my grandmother's legacy from someone who was willing to betray her trust for personal gain. Do I hate Victoria? No. Hatred is a burden I've chosen not to carry. But I also don't regret fighting back, because staying silent would have meant allowing a lie to become the truth. Today, the inheritance is no longer what matters most to me. What matters is knowing that I honored my grandmother's wishes and refused to let fear, pressure, or family manipulation stop me from doing what was right. As for Victoria, she has to live with the consequences of her own choices. The money she fought so hard to steal was never worth the reputation, relationships, and trust she lost along the way. Sometimes people think revenge is about making someone suffer. But I've learned that the most powerful revenge is living well, telling the truth, and refusing to become like the people who hurt you. In the end, I didn't destroy my sister's life. She did that herself. I simply refused to let her destroy mine. Now I want to hear from you. Asterisk, if your own sister stole your inheritance and your entire family took her side, would you fight for the truth like I did? Or would you walk away and start over? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to asterisk like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more shocking family betrayal stories, emotional revenge tales, and unforgettable endings. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.